forgotten I even called you about it.
Pretty much.
To tell you the truth.
Cam, are you gonna send the months,
So,
dates for the next few months of
help you
meetings?
get that filled out for,
I got one for last year, but not one for 19. Thank you.
I told her fine.
Sorry? Going? How's service for y'all?
How's what?
How's your first month of service?
I've seen it enough times, it's not too bad.
Did you hear what DeWitt just said?
I can't hear you.
Did you hear what DeWitt just said? I said, how's your first month of service? DeWitt goes, they haven't done much work.
That's right. We had it.
So it's about the same. It's
Probably
not
got a
bad.
lot of
I
flesh.
can't complain.
All right, very good.
Happy New Year to you. Oh, this is their first year.
I'm doing nearly one. How about you?
huh?
Oh, do I just press yes?
Yes. All right.
Not trying to,
Thank you.
like,
Yeah, I
I know it.
yes. Well, I'd give you a neck hug, but I don't want to give you this.
Okay.
Well, they cross all the T's.
Yes.
Happy
Yes.
New Year. How you doing?
Oh, okay. I was off the back.
That's
I hope you had a good holiday.
Trying to figure out.
no, this. Ours.
Stop. What is the yeah, but where's it coming? Where's it? Oh, never mind.
Take it. I didn't check it. I didn't check it.
Oh, man, Christ.
Oh, you. What?
I remember.
Huh? Print out from where, do you know where this is?
I don't ever get.
Okay. It's like an original document. Whoever's taking over his place has.
I guess, no, I guess.
I'm the one.
On these are all public. It's all public. That's
But I did
Doesn't look like.
bust my house down.
You up over there.
How would you?
Hi, Jim. I think,
Files? Rounded.
I got things double. I don't have to.
oh, that's,
Hard copies. Um, like I don't have this.
very, very tough. Well, it looks like the rain is started.
Outdated.
Well, right, because it rained all year long.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, this.
Nothing. I didn't get anything. Worked out.
I was getting my mind ready to move it.
I know you were getting ready for.
Well, I was,
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Well, I'm familiar with some of that stuff. Website.
but anyway, the kids okay. Yeah. Boys out. Oh. Whatever they are.
Sign in, Jeff.
No, we started up.
You know, I was days,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. How you doing?
I know.
Need to sign in, Sherry.
and then,
Done.
Oh, did you?
Well, I thought,
I did too, but she didn't have it set up where we could sign in. It's taking us earlier.
well, I don't, well,
they've been doing,
Have that.
move.
I believe we have a quorum, so we can get started. Welcome to the City of Milton. Happy New Year, everybody. Call the Sundial meeting to order. First item on the agenda is to approve the December minutes, which requires a vote. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilwoman Johnson and a second from Councilman Powell to approve the minutes for December. Any discussion? If not, please vote. It's unanimously approved. Moving on to approval of the November financial report, which requires a motion. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Councilman Jeff Snow moves to approve. I received 2 seconds from Councilman Powell and Councilwoman Holly.
now we're gonna have it.
Okay, we'll let the record reflect Powell will be the second. Any discussion? If not, please vote. Unanimously approved. Moving on to persons to appear. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the City of Milton about the Sundial Utilities of Milton, Inc.? Seeing none, we'll move to other business. Is there any other business to appear according to our agenda? None. Has that changed? Mr. Jorgensen?
No, ma'am.
Seeing that there is no other business, I call to adjourn this meeting of the Sundial Utilities of Milton, Inc. Thank you. We will reconvene at 5:45 for the executive committee meeting.
always
This-
don't get to see.
So anyway,
Weather
this
wasn't,
will happen. I try to go out there.
but we enjoyed each other's company indoors. We played a lot of.
All of the players, I and so anyway, I said, okay. So, it's kind of like a laptop. That's what all of this,
I'm not real.
and I'm here to, some of this stuff, say here, I don't know.
I work. Correct.
But it, cause there's too many other places that they, right, I'm thinking money, I don't know what they,
Thanks.
I know it.
Okay.
But anyway, whenever I,
Coming.
Not only that,
Hey, Jeff. I forgot about it. I forgot about it.
Hit the gang at the
Typically. Like, ooh.
well, how was,
It was great. I can talk about that in a but I did make a, or Alex.
yeah, I had a friend of mine,
We ought to ask Alex to report on how it went.
a friend of mine was there, he was like, hey, your mayor's up. Andy DeMartin. I don't know why he was,
I think it's,
from New York. For that. It's all different. Pretty, he loves it. And Mike, I was just talking with his son, works.
I didn't,
Yeah. Or,
it wasn't rest, it was enjoyable.
yeah, that's
you seen the mural?
crazy.
It turned out good. I like it.
Visiting, they leave.
Yeah, they did a good job.
It's been,
That's so good.
taught them how to play the card game of cards. I said, this is perfect for y'all, 'cause you're supposed to. It's a ruthless game. Don't do it. You see the
But yeah, that's true, 'cause see, I'm saying you don't know where they will be at that point. Whether or not they're gonna be ripping some more floor. Because one of the air conditioners, the heaters is stable at this point, you know? Well, that's the truth. I think it's supposed to be, down. I already missed.
Yeah, you don't disturb me one bit.
well, I know.
But anyway, I'll talk to you about it.
Okay. But he also sounded like he had, that I felt, or did,
Well,
that they're not your,
Yeah, that's,
so to put it on that. Hold on.
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. That's
Doing,
right.
they just spent $50.
January is getting this busy out there. Thanksgiving and Christmas time.
yeah, they have
Well, and that's a good. Everything is picking up. All kind of meat already. I gotta get that,
Years ago.
scheduled those West planning.
I listen.
Oh,
Yeah, that's, or that's on Paul Murray. I just gotta settle down and been under the.
Well, hello, I didn't even see you slide in then. Did you have a good Christmas and Happy New Year?
Everybody got off it.
Fairly wonderful.
They did.
That's,
your girls.
I saw somewhere over the holidays, like a projected list that might close down. Pizza is one of them. Well, I know it.
Oh, no, I'm.
Yes, right.
Yes.
That's right, that's right. But, oh yeah, I was,
No? Oh, and
every once,
everybody.
What do you about? Booties and diamonds?
right, that's right.
They said ours was
I know it, that's one. The same, no change thing.
It doesn't.
Got to have, you gotta do,
Okay.
that's same old.
but I wasn't. Other,
Done.
Gotta do something. Yeah, that's true. I know, that's. Got so much competition now, and strategies.
I
and-
didn't have her. That day. Okay?
I think so.
We're going to call this meeting to order. We have a quorum, and it's 5:45. The Executive Committee meeting of January 2nd, 2019. And the first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Oh, I have something to add.
Yes.
So, I found some of your recommendations during the last, very exciting, and I would like the opportunity to add some to this, discuss them, unless you had another plan. So can I tell you which ones I'd like to talk about? You want me to do it
Absolutely.
at a later date?
Yeah, actually, what I would suggest is when we get to our reports, to continue to discuss what's on our minds, and then any action that needs to be taken, if it's appropriate to take it next week, or if not, then we won't necessarily have it as, we won't have to make a decision next week if it's something that should be further discussed in committee later this month. But thank you. I'm glad that you were interested in some of the things we talked about last
I
time.
am. I just want to make sure that I'm able to bring these up at an
Absolutely.
appropriate time. So when would the time for that, add them to the agenda now?
I would consider that as part of the, some of that's going to be part of my report, and some of it will be part of your report, I would think.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Normally, we just ask if there's any additional items from staff or council, and then we go from there, right, Randy?
Yeah, I hadn't had a chance to even say those words, but they are
Okay.
underneath that approval of agenda for additional items.
Okay, that's
Do,
okay.
do we have additional items, Mr. Jorgensen?
I do not, Mayor.
And if we have additional items from council, my concern about adding items to the agenda is if it's something that is not ripened for action, I would hesitate to encourage y'all to make a decision today. If you want to add it to the agenda, obviously, feel free to say that you want to add it to the agenda. But as the chair of the meeting, I will caution you if I think this needs to be something that gets discussed further in committee. The things that I was bringing up in December are things that I hope we do have plenty of time to discuss. So that's my only hesitation, Councilwoman Rice.
And I understand these actually aren't actual discussion. I just got to discuss.
Absolutely. And may I ask that you look in the microphone when you're speaking so we can all hear you.
Okay.
You have a nice, soft-spoken voice, so sometimes people won't be able to hear you.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
On the additional items, if anyone from council needs to add those, or add something, after it's added, then we can determine whether it needs to be talked about or pushed on, like you were saying, to committee of the whole or something.
I understand where you're coming from. Does someone have something they would like to add to our agenda of items for action tonight? If it's something you'd like to add as a discussion point, then certainly it's going to be discussed at your councilman report, I would hope.
Sure, I was just saying as normal, if somebody had something that came up out of the blue, since we're in the executive and we didn't have a committee and they wanted to talk about it, then we would go further whether it needed to be pushed to committee or anything else. But they should definitely have the right to bring it up at this time, under additional item.
I do not hear, though, that anyone actually has a specific item to add.
Not this time. I was just saying in general. Oh.
So moving on to the next item on our agenda, public hearings/meetings, we do not have any scheduled, nor do we have any recognitions, special presentations, or awards, nor do we have any invited speakers. However, I did receive a document. Someone does want to appear. Mr. Wallace has submitted a form asking for an opportunity to speak. Mr. Wallace, would you like to come to the podium and address us? Yes, sir. Please come to the podium, and if each of you would state your name and address so that we will have a record of your being here, we appreciate it.
I'm Bill Wallace.
I'm Brian Unruh, 4895 Pineview Ridge Road, in Pace.
Would you state your name again? I couldn't hear you.
Brian Unruh.
Thank you. And you, sir?
Hey, I'm Zach Johnson, 4882 Pineview Ridge Road, Pace.
Welcome, gentlemen. Please proceed.
So, like I mentioned, my name is Zach Johnson. I'm the pastor over here at Ferris Hill. And one of the things we wanted to meet with the council about is we've put in a permit to change up our sign over here on Stewart Street. And we've met with the city manager, and we're aware of the code. And so we just wanted to talk through with the city council about variance options and stuff like that. And I'll let Brian share a little bit more about it.
So as was stated, we had, the sign contractor, Sign Crafters Inc. had put a permit request in. And like I said, or Zach said, it met with a little bit of resistance because we had included a digital, what do they call those things? Digital message center on there. So there was some resistance met with that per some code. And as Zach said, we would just be interested in what are some possible variance options that are there. Currently, if you're not familiar with the sign, it's been there forever. But it's coming apart, and we primarily, it's a directional sign, has the arrow that points to the church a couple blocks to the east, and then really the only thing we ever advertise on that is typically on the one side is the message that the preacher is going to be preaching, and then the other side, which is of our biggest concern, is the fact that we host the cold weather shelter for Santa Rosa County, and that is our primary means by which we indicate whether we are open or closed to those who tend to utilize that facility. Of course, it goes out through EOC and radio and TV and whatnot. But folks that are that frequent the shelter know that that's where they look, and so that's why we had hoped to include the digital signage message that is there. So, again, as Zach said, we're just simply trying to figure out if there are variance options available, and if not, we'll proceed. If so, we would like to know what those might be.
I would suggest that you talk with staff, Mr. Jorgensen particularly, or he may have someone else he would designate that could outline those options for you. Is that correct?
Mayor, I have spoken with these gentlemen following a conversation with Mr. Milstead, who had also consulted with them. What the code would identify is that for directional signs off-premise, there can only be 2 items found on that sign. One is the direction, and the other is the general location. I mean, there isn't options available for a variable message sign that would provide the information they've described to the traveling public. Now, that's the code. Thus, that's the law, and we will not permit an activity that violates those standards. However, if council would like to consider changing that standard to allow for the sign under these circumstances, that's something you can do. It is a unique circumstance in that, it is the cold weather shelter in Milton, and I too, like most, would like to see that information get out. I do have fear about setting a precedence for others who would come forward with similar type requests.
Yes, sir. I appreciate what y'all are doing. My request would be that our city attorney review this so that we're not making piecemeal exceptions as a city, but actually looking at the sign ordinance and making a comprehensive review that's best for the city of Milton. Your approach, I think, it has a lot of value, and there's public good to be served by what you want to do. So if the city attorney could review it to see if we could perhaps move forward with some changes.
Let me do this if I could, Mayor. Let's put it on for committee of the whole, and we'll look at available options and provide those to you.
That would be great.
Mayor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Randy, isn't there a digital sign on Stewart Street already?
There may be. This is an off-premise sign.
Oh,
so
off-premise from
yes.
it. So that is the only separate, I mean, that's the only thing that is different than the other ones that are there. They're all on-premise.
That is the difference,
Right.
and that does allow, if you were to open that up, then you're allowing any enterprise, as it's currently constituted within this community, to request a variable message sign not on their property. I would recommend against that. Let us evaluate it and bring you back information.
Yes, there are broader issues that could be impacted by a general change, and the specific concern that they're raising can be honored without jeopardizing the general planning approach, I would think.
Let us look at options, Mayor. We'll be happy to bring the information.
Thank you.
Are you concerned about cold weather in the meantime? The committee of the whole is January 17th.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate y'all bringing that to our attention.
Absolutely.
Rick.
I'd like just to personally say thank you to you guys. I visited the cold weather shelter numerous times, and what y'all provide for this, not just the city, but the whole county, is a tremendous thing. And I'd just like to publicly thank y'all, and hopefully we can figure out some solutions here for y'all. Okay?
All right. Thank you, Councilman Snow. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say one word before
Yes,
I
sir.
leave. I can't hardly talk, but our church has been trying to get ready for a new sign, and we've raised the money for the new sign, and we think it'll do 100%, look 100% better with the new sign up there that we're supposed to get, and we're just waiting on y'all. Appreciate you and love you, okay?
Thanks for letting us know. I'm glad you've already been able to raise the money. I know that must have been a significant effort. Thank you.
Miss Madam Mayor, tell them the
Yes, ma'am.
meeting's at 3.
Oh, just so you're aware, gentlemen, the meeting on January 17th begins at 3 p.m. if you'd like to come back. It will be on the agenda. Thank you. I don't believe there are any other persons to appear, so we will move to the city attorney's report. Mr. Andrade.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Thank you. City clerk's report. Nothing to report. So we're moving to the agenda items for the Parks and Recreation Committee. We still have let's see here, we have item 1071, the Carpenter's Park Splash Pad. I know since Councilwoman Peggy Smith is not here, she's not here to introduce this item. Has everyone had an opportunity to review item 1071?
Well.
Mr. Jorgensen, do you have anything to add beyond what's in our packet?
Well, I do. Just a couple of comments. First, the costs for the splash pad have increased by approximately $100,000 over the original projections. That number, prior to a meeting I had with the principals who are assisting us with this project, that being TSW and Volkert, was $792,000. We managed to carve about $200,000 out of their latest estimate of costs. I think this is a reasonable figure for us to work with. It does include not insignificant contingencies at 23% of total project costs. I'm not surprised by that price escalation. If you recall, I've commented that that Michael principally is going to drive up the costs of anything that has to do with the construction trades industry, and that's the experience I believe we're having here. It's within what we have available through the local option sales tax, and we have dedicated for this purpose. It does not include the funding that has been dedicated by Santa Rosa County or potential other grants that we've made application for. So that would be the worst case scenario that the city would experience. I believe that what your experience will actually be significantly less once we receive those proceeds that are also dedicated to this activity.
Were you just referring to the preliminary cost budget detail sheet that's in the packet?
I am, the final page.
The final page. And it indicates a subtotal of $487,379 with the general conditions, bonds, and contingency amount of $112,097.17. Is that what you're referring to by the $100,000 increase?
That's correct.
How were you able to shave $200,000? Because I don't think we have a document here.
There's a parking area on the north side of Munson Highway. You'll see described there. It's Carpenter's Park Phase 1, second to the last page. We'll make those improvements as part of maintenance on that property. That's $150,000 worth of work. And that's the principal means by which we've reduced the total project cost, is to make those improvements ourselves rather than to look for others to do that on our behalf.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Randy, I'd like to say thank you for sharpening your pencil on this and making it even more cost effective to make this happen, and hopefully we'll have it done by May.
You can see the schedule. It's pretty aggressive, but we're continuing to push it.
Be aggressive.
Can I make a comment, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
You know, this is going to be a flagship project, and this is going to be a good-looking part of Milton. And I kept looking at this plan, and I was looking at a one-story concrete block restaurant. I think we could do better looking at concrete block in a flagship project like that.
Well, it's actually remodeling the existing facility. We did look at an alternative, that being a new facility to meet the needs of the community. That cost was approximately $200,000 more.
Is there a possibility of doing some facade or something to make that look better? That building's going to be kind of it's just not going to look appropriate in this flagship park.
I'll be happy to find a way to make it from an aesthetic standpoint appear to be something new to the community. How's that
You
sound?
understand what I'm
I
saying.
understand
If you're
exactly.
going to spend $600,000,
Yeah. Yeah, and I understand a concrete block. I agree with you. A concrete block structure is not something that we find to be attractive. It's something that exists there currently, and we can make improvements to the outside, whether that be siding or stucco or something along those lines to make it have a better appearance.
Thank you for listening.
You bet.
Absolutely.
Good point.
Mayor, can I say something on this? So there are some trees tagged in the park, and I spoke with Mr. Jorgensen earlier about that. They may be tagged, some for removal and some for keeping. I know we have some trees planted in that park that were part of a grant through the city. So no one's interested in, or no one wants to delay this project. But I think that maybe we could have someone talk to Volkert about the possibility of working around some of those trees without it impeding the project. I've spoken with a certified forester, and he's willing to take that on and to talk with them just to see if there's a possibility in that. And I wanted to know if anyone else was interested in that.
Can you identify what page so that we can put it up on the screens, people can see?
I don't know
I
if you're
can't
gonna
read this to
find- I
tell
don't know
you
if you're gonna
enough. I
find-
drove around the park.
I don't know if you're going to find those specific trees.
So it's not in the packet we have, which trees could be removed?
I haven't been to the site and looked at the site. The trees that have been marked, I indicated earlier to Councilwoman Rice that I would do that. But also work with Public Works and the Landscape Department to determine which trees we can protect and move ahead with the project. If we have to remove trees that were paid for with a grant, we will replace those trees with the same or similar in a different location.
My concern is that sometimes a contractor might be a little more quick to remove a tree that could possibly be saved, and that's why I've spoken with someone that's a certified forester that could advise on that maybe some trees don't have to be removed.
We're willing to
So
listen.
is there a
to-
problem
No,
with them?
no, we're willing to
Okay, so
listen.
the certified forester that I've spoken to is Vernon Compton. Is it okay with the board if he talks to Volkert to see if there's a way to work around some of it, again, without increasing the cost, without slowing down the project?
I would recommend that Mr. Compton get together with Mr. Willingham, who's on our staff, and that they talk about it before we involve a discussion with Volkert. Following whatever conclusions they draw, I'll be happy to share that information.
Do we need a motion on that or not?
I don't think we have to have a motion on that.
Just staff direction. We can
Yeah.
take
I
care of
agree.
that.
And hopefully some of these trees, if they do have to be removed, they can be placed somewhere else. I'm not sure how big they all are, depending.
I think we need to defer to Mr. Compton and
Yeah.
Mr. Willingham and go from there.
Yeah,
Super.
And that conceptual question isn't being, you're not asking for the council to decide any of those questions right now.
I am not.
And that wouldn't be decided next week either, would it?
It would not.
Okay. So they can act on this tonight for next week without jeopardizing the saving of trees.
They can.
Okay. And in the meantime, Mr. Compton will get together with Mr. Willingham?
That's what I understand, Mayor.
Great. So if there's not any other discussion on the update for Carpenter's Park splash pad, is council ready to make a motion to move this forward to next week's meeting?
Motion. May I make a statement?
Oh, Councilwoman Holly, the discussion wasn't completed? Go ahead, please.
I'm sorry. At the meeting between Mr. Compton and Mr. Willingham, could Joe Cook be invited to that meeting since he is shaping supervisor?
It would be my intent that we would receive a report from both of them following their conversation. And whether that be oral or in writing, it would probably occur in my office, and Mr. Cook would be present.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my assumption, and I'm glad you asked that question so we could say this out loud and be clear. So after this discussion between Mr. Compton and Mr. Willingham, Mr. you know, the individuals involved will then report to you, Mr. Jorgensen, and then you'll report back to council next week.
That's correct.
And if the meeting can't be done by next week, that's okay, as long as it gets done by January 17th, because
Well,
next week,
If Mr. Compton's available, I can make Mr. Willingham available.
okay, great. Well, I assume Mr. Compton's available. He's here today to let us know? Okay. So we hopefully will hear something next week. Thank you. Are there any other comments from the council members?
None other than, I just wanted to thank staff for update. I think it's important as we proceed on projects that we are given an update. So thank you so much.
I agree. Very detailed and helpful. And if there's no other commentary, then I ask that council make a motion to move this forward to next week's meeting.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Snow and a second from Councilwoman Hathaway. If there's no further discussion, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the next item, number 1123, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Parade. This appears to be an information item where staff is asking if we will notify you if we want to be involved. Is that correct?
Please.
Yes, I would.
Okay. Others who would like to participate?
Oh,
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Contact.
especially the
Ready?
breakfast.
Okay.
Is there anyone who would not like to participate? That's a shorter list. Thank you.
That's true.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bruton.
Lineup starts at 8:30. Okay,
8:30?
8:30.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Are you
8:30.
the director?
Are you in charge of the lineup again this
Are you
year?
director?
Well,
Bring in that.
yeah, well, I'll probably get,
Yeah.
Drafted?
drafted, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but we will be lining up at 8:30.
Is that at Milton High School?
Pardon?
Milton High School parking lot?
High School parking lot.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, the council members, if you haven't seen it in your mail yet, there's a celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day flyer that was given to us, which Councilman Powell brought with him, and I believe Councilwoman Holly did too. And so that's where it tells us the lineup begins at 8:30, and contact Carolyn at 686-1629. But I think Pam is offering to do that. She'll talk to Miss Carolyn for us. And there are other items on the list for that weekend and the weekend prior. The prayer breakfast is actually January 12th at 9 a.m. And there's a commemorative program on Sunday, January 20th at 6 p.m. There's also a block party after the parade on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive at 11:30 on Monday, January 21. And I have been told it's going to be great, and people are encouraged to stay and visit and enjoy the block party. I just thought I'd make sure everyone had noticed their flyer so they could get updated.
It was really good last year, so I recommend it.
Great. So if there's nothing further on item 1123, then we'll move on. Councilman Snow, Public Works Committee.
Item 1150, create a committee for the purpose of pursuing funding for the wastewater treatment plant. The mayor has indicated that establishing a committee of subject matter experts to pursue funding for the construction of the SRRWRF is in the city's best interest. Participants would include our engineering firm, BDI, municipal finance consultants, county invitees, council participants, city staff, and others.
I believe Mr. Jorgensen has some comments to add to this too, Councilman Snow, if you don't mind allowing him to add.
Not at all.
I have some individuals who I'd recommend, one being Rick Delp, BDI, engineered the facility on our behalf. Buzz Eddy, Municipal Finance. Dan Schriebler, County Administrator, or his appointee. An appointee from the Board of County Commissioners to be determined. The Chair of the Growth and Development Committee for the City of Milton, George Jordan. Other members of council, obviously, who have an interest. All these meetings invite all of you to attend. We'll notice these meetings under sunshine as the law would require. So will act prudently. That's my tentative list. I know that there are members of council who may have some individuals they'd like to add, and we welcome them, provided we don't get over the number of 15 or 20. So, anybody, I know Councilwoman Rice has indicated she's got a person or two, both of which I'm familiar with, that I'd invite. And she'll provide that information to you now. If there's other names, we'll go from there.
Councilwoman Rice, you're recognized.
Thank you. Yeah. So Shelley Alexander is the Environmental Programs Coordinator with the county, and she's familiar with grants. So I would like to recommend her. And Daryl Boudreau with the Nature Conservancy, also very familiar with this project, and he said that he is interested. He just has to run it up the chain of command to make sure that it would be okay. So I'd like to recommend both of those.
Councilman Snow, did you have anyone to recommend in particular?
Not this time. I'll take a look into that. I'd like to be on it, if possible.
All of council will be invited.
All of it? Okay,
all of
just
the
want to make
meetings.
sure. Okay.
Yeah, the concept I had was to make sure we had subject matter experts who could help us
Yes.
create the most persuasive message so that we could obtain the funding that is so desperately needed so that we can move forward and help the whole region really develop further to support the economy here in Milton as well as the region. So it's the idea was that, of course, all the elected officials would be a part of it, but that I'd hope that we could recruit some people with special experience to help us with that.
Mayor,
Thank you.
I think that's a great idea. Just a question, should we look at some of our higher representation? If we could add them to it, if they'd be willing to get as many on board, if that would be helpful or not, just an idea.
Mr. Jorgensen and I were talking about speaking to the county commissioners about appointing someone from their board. Is that what you're asking?
Well, you mentioned the county, and I agree with that
Yeah.
totally. But maybe even hire that with Williamson or Gates or any of them, whoever we could get on there. I don't know if that would help possibly.
We
That
could
sort
ask
of
them.
dovetails with Doug Broxton's, I'm sorry, I didn't
yes.
see you begin to speak there, Mr. Jorgensen. Go
Well,
ahead.
We could ask the city attorney if he would
Yeah.
attend.
Yeah, the city attorney might want to be involved.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it dovetails a bit with the request that Senator Broxton made at that meeting recently, that the city attorney was present at as well in his capacity as our representative. And essentially his thought was, could you please organize a meeting with subject matter experts such as the engineers so that he could become more informed about some of these details? So I do think that they want to continue to hear from us. Whether or not they have time to participate in all the meetings, I don't know, but definitely that's part of the purpose of this committee, is to make sure that we have enough facts to help our representatives in Florida, in Tallahassee, to help us get the funding that we very much need.
Might I recommend that we simply invite our legislative contingent, both federal and state?
And I agree with that, Randy. And I think, Mayor, you're right on point with that. Sometimes if we make them, or if they're at least invited or made a part of it, then they feel vested a little closer to it. So I agree with that totally.
Please rest assured that I feel very vested. and I'll if you guys would like me to be there, I'll happily attend if I'm here in
I think
town.
it's a great idea.
We would appreciate it, and I also appreciate how receptive y'all were when I made my presentation on behalf of the city. And we'll talk about that when we get to the mayor's report, and hopefully you'll have something to add as well. Thank you, sir. Is there anything further to discuss regarding the committee appointments at this time? Note that the council's not being asked to make the decision at this point. This is an item for discussion and study at this point.
We'll put together the list of names that have been presented to council for their action next Tuesday evening.
And also along with the list, if you can maybe identify, just generalize the qualification of those individuals. I know that we're talking subject matter experts, but if we can see that and we'll know we have a blend of those in case we have to add to. For example, not only that, But you might want to look for somebody with technical writing skills in terms of putting all that together.
Councilwoman will be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I add one thing?
Sure.
Just as, I've been talking for several months with county commissioners and some other individuals, and with the 87 connector, which at the last TPO meeting, I think you were there on time for Bob Cole wanted to push it up. I was told that if we try to work and combine these two projects together, that we are more likely to get Triumph funds for that possibly. So that's something we need to look into further also.
I would think that would be a topic of discussion by this group of subject matter experts.
Just kind of want to know everybody, or let everyone know in this setting of the conversations that I've been hearing and talking with.
Thank you for sharing that. And so if I'm hearing the council correctly, we're appreciative of staff for collecting this information for us so that we can hopefully identify a group of folks with a cross-section of skills and experience that would help us advocate effectively to obtain funds that are necessary to the success of development here in this region. And so we appreciate all your work on this, Mr. Jorgensen, and other staff members too. So at this point, I believe the motion is I'm asking if you will move this to continue to be discussed next week.
Motion. Or second.
Oh.
Councilman Snow, I believe, will say made the motion, and Councilwoman Johnson seconded. If there's no further discussion, please vote. And that is unanimously approved. The next item, 1153, Councilman Snow, I understand from Mr. Jorgensen, he may ask that this be moved to the Committee of the Whole.
Yes, he's had it with me, and I have no problem moving it to Committee of the Whole if the council agrees with that.
Mr. Jorgensen, do you want to speak to why you want to make that request?
I just want to flush out the list better than what it is. I don't believe that we have in recent history vetted the list that is found here, nor do I necessarily agree that this is the methodology we should employ to make these determinations. So it'll allow me time to look at it further and appreciate it.
May I speak, Madam?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Jorgensen, you and I have not discussed this list, but when I looked at it, it's like if you're on the same train, I think some of these reasons and these ages, these addresses, not so much the addresses, but the reasons in the Committee of the Whole is that I think we need to consider not putting there what's wrong with these 97-year-old that has a blind wife.
Well,
their
that's
address.
that's why I said I don't know that I necessarily agree with the methodology employed to make
I
this
just wanted
decision.
to make sure that was the same methodology.
We're thinking the same way.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Snow, was that a motion?
Yes, I'll put it in the motion.
Second.
So we're moving this to the Committee of the Whole, unless there's any objection. And for purposes of further discussion, Mr. Jorgensen, if there's a member of the community who wants to receive an exemption, then perhaps they should be told that this is going to be discussed on January 17th so that if they have something to share with council, they can attend.
I'll ask the PIO to put out that information for public dissemination.
Thank you, sir. And now we are at council reports. If you'd like to vote on it, yes, please vote to move it to Committee of the Whole. And it unanimously is approved. Moving forward to council reports. Are there any council members who would like to make a report? I think
Mayor,
Councilwoman Rice had a report.
So this is a little different because it's just things that were discussed, so I don't think it fits under anyone's particular area. But I wanted to know if now was the time that we were going to have the discussion about your committee appointment, because at the last meeting, it was put out that we would think about it and that we would come back and discuss it further, and there was just something that I wanted to discuss as far as one of the appointments.
Yes, I had asked if each of you would consider accepting my request that you be appointed as I suggested. Do you not want to be appointed?
I do, but I have a comment that I would like to make about one of the other appointments.
Please.
Okay. So I'm going to make sure that I'm facing forward for the mic here. And if you'll just bear with me, I have this written out so that I cover everything that I wanted to. So I appreciate your comments, that we would take the time to think about it. And I want you to know that I spent a lot of time thinking about this. So I want to discuss your appointment to the TPO. I'm concerned about your appointment to the TPO, and that's because of the comments you made on social media regarding the 4-lane, which creates a difficult situation for me, and this is why. Between November and August, I went to a variety of neighborhoods and events speaking with a lot of different people and was told by citizens of Milton that they are not in favor of the 4-lane and that they want to preserve the cute and historic nature of downtown. So for them, the taxpaying citizens of Milton who voted for us, I want to make sure that we have someone in that position that will stand against the 4-lane. I'm a strong advocate of setting people up for success, so I feel it appropriate to let you know my expectation of anyone that will hold this position. The last official stance of the City Council was opposing the 4-lane, and I'm not going to challenge your appointment to the TPO, but my expectation is that you will carry and uphold the will of the council with enthusiasm. So all I can do at this point is give you a pep talk like I would any friend. So I know that you can convey to the citizens, I know that you can convey that the citizens of Milton deserve to have the downtown they want, that is walkable, safe, aesthetically pleasing, with culture and activities. I know you love Milton, and you do not want us to sacrifice ourselves just so someone can get to East Milton or Pace a few minutes faster. It is not wrong to put us first. To DOT, we are just another road, but to the citizens of Milton, this is history and this is home. So you were elected by the citizens of Milton, not by the county, and that may be hard to stand up for, but if you do, I guarantee you're going to have all of the citizens of Milton behind you. So 4-laning, in my mind, is not progress of 2019. That was progress of the past, and today's successful cities are creating destinations and opposing road widening. No business is going to benefit from faster moving traffic. So if you're choosing to be on the TPO, we need you to oppose the 4-lane and challenge DOT to come back with a creative and progressive solution that works for the city of Milton. And if you need someone to stand with you and support you in this, I think between all of us, we can always have someone right there beside you. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you for your remarks. I really appreciate hearing your feedback. And obviously, I'm the mayor for everyone in Milton. I'm not just the mayor for a few. And I have heard a variety of comments from people as I was campaigning as well. So I appreciate that you have that concern, and I hope that you'll see as time goes on that to the extent you've interpreted my comments on social media as being negative towards the values you stated, then I hope you'll come to understand that I appreciate those values too.
Okay?
Thank you.
Ms. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
does that mean you stand against the 4-lane?
Well, whether I stand against the 4-lane or not is not the question here. We're
Yep.
talking about the TPO appointment.
Well,
Whether-
actually it is. It's the major thing that's going on with Highway 90, and it's basically either you're for it or against it.
If y'all are asking me to state whether I'm for it or against it, what I'm going to tell you is I'm for complying with the law and being practical. And if it's beyond our control, if we're not able to control the outcome of the 4-lane,
That's
then
not true.
it
Can you
doesn't
prove
matter
that?
whether I'm against it or not, Mr. Snow.
Can you prove that? Why does the FDOT do a survey and it comes back 80% that are against it?
Sir, what I would like for us to do is recognize that the PD&E study is going to be released in February. And at that point, we're going to find out what that study has provided so that we can determine what is the list of practical options that we as a city have, so that then you as the council can discuss that report, discuss what you think is best for the citizens, invite the citizens to provide their feedback, and then y'all
That's
can...
already been done.
Sir, may I finish?
Yes.
Thank you. So what I'm asking for is for you to recognize, first of all, that some things are going to be beyond the control of this council. As your mayor, I will certainly advocate for what the council asks me to do. I know that issue has come up before. In the prior council, when Mr. Meese was our mayor, I know that the council and the mayor had to have those discussions as well as to, this is what the majority of the council wants. Mr. Mayor, will you represent our point of view? I respect that that is an issue that we will have to discuss as the time goes forward. At this point, as your TPO representative, I am not tasked with going to a meeting before the PD&E study to advocate for a particular position. So I do think that we have time to review the study results and decide, as a city, you can decide, what does this study say? How does it impact the people? And then you can make a decision by virtue of a resolution and ask me to go forward with it. But this is a new council, so I think it is not necessarily the case that what this council discussed prior to the election still holds true for a majority.
Well, we can make that happen next week.
You can, but wouldn't it be premature when the study hasn't been released and will not be coming out until February?
Where this committee stands has no bearing on what they're going to come out with. And to sit and state that we have no, everyone wants, or not everyone, a few people want to state that FDOT is going to do what they want. Technically, at the end of the day, can they make that choice? Yes, they can. But for anyone to say that public opinion and a city council's opinions don't matter, I think is totally incorrect. If that's the case, I just saw where they're asking for more public survey on Highway 98. So they do care, but we need to do everything in our power to stand against the 4-lane. And I believe what Councilwoman Rice is asking is if you're willing to do that.
Well, sir, if I can just say, I'm not saying that the council's opinion doesn't matter. I believe Councilman Powell has a remark.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think the question really is if the mayor will support what the council puts forward as the opinion of the council. And it sounds like to me that she's saying that she will. And I think she was saying that her opinion, as to the relevance of her opinion, is that she's waiting on the council to make a decision once there's a decision needed to be made. So I appreciate the concerns being stated, but at the same time, I do believe that in the mayor's position, no matter who the mayor is, their position is to carry out what the council passes. I think that's what the mayor is trying to state.
Thank you. And just so you know, I'm not saying that the council's opinion doesn't matter. I'm saying that certain things are beyond the control of the city. So let's find out what the study says in February, and then I would suggest that you make a recommendation on a resolution. Because one of the concerns I have, and it's a concern that was reflected back to me as I campaigned, is that the council should not be hasty in making decisions that affect the people. The council should make decisions after careful study and after being fully informed by those with subject matter expertise. So for you to make a decision...
I feel like we have.
May I finish?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So what I'm asking of you, Councilman Snow, is that rather than react to what my concern is by saying we'll make a decision next week at the city council meeting, wouldn't it be wise to be fully informed with the results of the PD&E study in February and then ask the council to consider a resolution to inform me and my role as your TPO representative?
Well, the council, of course, part of it is not, doesn't exist now, but the council has made a statement of where we stand at. Randy, have we continued to send the letters that we directed staff to continuously let FDOT know where we stand at?
Yes.
Okay. So there's nothing, I'm sure if we should do whatever it takes that this council has been put in charge of to save our downtown and our historic. It would be nice to have the mayor on board with.
Well, I caution you to not conclude that I'm against preserving the historic character of downtown Milton.
Well,
So I don't believe that any of my social media remarks actually mean that I'm not in favor of protecting the historic character of
it's a
downtown
simple
Milton.
yes or no to me. Okay?
Can I please say something?
I'm not
Madam
interested
Mayor?
in arguing with you about
I'm
it,
not arguing,
Councilman
it's
Snow.
just a discussion.
It seems that
Well,
it seems that it's not remaining a discussion. I appreciate your concerns. That's what I hope you'll hear me say. I appreciate your concerns. I appreciate Councilwoman Rice's concerns. I appreciate that Councilman Powell is hearing what I'm saying, that I want to be responsive to those concerns and be your advocate. However, I caution you, before you make a decision, if you are going to have an opportunity to be further informed by the results of a study, then it only makes sense as a wise leader to be fully informed and have an opportunity to review those results. So it was my approach that until this meeting tonight, it was my belief that all of you actually agreed with that concern, that we should be waiting and watching for this result in February so that you could be fully informed and you could guide me and this city forward. I think Councilwoman Holly has a concern, and I see Mr. Compton would like to make a remark as well. Councilwoman Holly?
I agree with Councilman Powell. I think this has turned into some type of debate tonight. It needs to stop. Nothing can be done about it today. You are the TPO representative. You're the mayor of Milton. You represent everyone in the mayor in the city limits, not just council, but all of our constituents and our business owners.
Yes.
So you're doing the right thing, and until we can get back some facts set in front of us, I think the dog and pony show needs to stop.
it's not a dog and
I
pony.
have
Mr. Compton.
something that I would like to add.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilwoman Rice.
So we have meetings, TPO meetings before February.
There is one meeting between now.
So
And
how
March.
will you represent us until that meeting, that we get those results back?
Well, there's no action for me to take as your TPO representative until the next meeting.
But as you interact with other people at the TPO, will you be carrying what we want with you?
I suppose it confuses me that you're expecting me to have opportunities to be meeting with TPO members to discuss this issue.
Well, if you discuss in a meeting, if you discuss.
Let me just say, too, that it's obvious from what Mr. Jorgensen has said that the letters that council directed him to send are continuing to be sent. I have not asked him to change course on anything that this council has directed him to do.
Okay, and then I wanted to say that we can challenge what DOT comes back with. And we had some merchants here in Milton that challenged the intersection at Glover and 90. So, and that was just a few merchants. So we can challenge.
Ma'am, I hear what you're saying, and I want y'all to understand that I do not see the executive committee meeting as an opportunity to debate these things. I see what you're saying as a very important point of concern on your mind, and any important point of concern that should come before this council for a vote should be discussed in full at a committee meeting. That is the committee of the whole.
This is a committee meeting, Mayor.
Sir?
Executive is just as another meeting, extension of the committee of the whole. These are the places that we can talk about it, and it's appropriate to talk about them in this situation.
Rather than argue with me about it, Councilman Snow, if I may be permitted to continue as the chair of this meeting, and then I'd like for Mr. Compton to have a chance to speak since he's been waiting so patiently. The point I am attempting to make, sir, is that the most orderly process for getting work done in this city, and there's an orientation that's coming up to fully brief you, as I don't believe you ever experienced the orientation after you were first elected. But the actual way this city works most effectively is if we have a lengthy meeting where we can discuss issues in depth. By the time we have an executive committee meeting, that discussion should have already occurred. So in other words, this committee meeting is really not the appropriate place for a full in-depth discussion of a concern. It's actually a place to identify concerns, as you've done. And you hear me hearing your concern and asking that it be further discussed. And that's the kind of action that gets taken at an executive committee meeting. Mr. Compton, please proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Vernon Compton, 5149 Santa Rosa Street. First, let me say, I know that you, the mayor, and each one of the council people here, you all love the city of Milton. So this debate about Highway 90 is Not an easy one because people have different opinions on it. But I do like the proactive way in which the city moved forward when merchants on Glover Lane came forward and said DOT was trying to do something in their mind that was correct too. It was addressing a safety issue, crashes, and it's a very dangerous intersection. But they were realigning a road that really alarmed the merchants on Glover Lane. So the city actually was very proactive on that. DOT, they are the subject matter experts on that. And they came forward with a plan that to those merchants on Glover Lane, even though it addressed the safety issue well, it really didn't fit the best needs of that part of Milton. And then I would say pretty much everyone agreed to the city of Milton as a whole, because we didn't put it as downtown versus Glover Lane, or we just tried to look at what's best for the city overall. And that was one of the issues where being proactive and taking a stance and going back to DOT and saying, I know you haven't completed everything yet, but we don't really feel like this is the right way to be moving forward. I think that's all that Councilwoman and Councilman are both saying is, how can we be more proactive on this ahead of time? It's not saying that we won't listen to DOT. It's what is the best interest of the city right now? And that's, to me, a very comparable issue as Glover Lane.
I appreciate that, and I agree with you. We should be able to be proactive, and we don't just blindly defer to one entity. We want to make sure they hear our
Right.
concerns. I completely agree with that. And, you know, it's my profession to be an advocate for my client's interests, and I consider every citizen in Milton my client when it comes to this issue. So I certainly want to advocate for everybody, including your concerns, Mr. Compton. I know you live right here in the city. I
Right.
get to see your house every Sunday.
Right.
So what I think makes the most sense is, because there is a concern about the February meeting coming up, why don't we allow this to be a discussion point at the committee of the whole to make sure that what the council's concerns are, if you want to continue to expand on that on January 17th, if you're here, if there's something that this council or any member of the public wants to be sure that I know and understand before the February meeting, I would love to hear about it, but I don't think tonight is the right time to get into it in depth. I'd like to have a chance to better understand it. Rather than tonight, I'd like to hear about it more on January 17th. So that's what I'm asking. I'm not asking to not discuss it. So I appreciate what you've said.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Is there any other comment from council about this?
Yes.
Councilwoman Johnson?
Yes. Several things have been discussed tonight in reference to the movement from FDOT, whatever is to be expected. I do agree that we do need to consider what is best for the city. And I think we all are on the same page there. But I do think that it's prudent to wait for the findings. Let's see what they're saying, because as you said, we can always come back and challenge that. But you do need to see what the core information is. We don't know. Maybe they went our thinking that we thought many, many months ago. But I think it'll be very premature and not a wise decision to do something tonight that we don't have enough information on to act. And I appreciate everybody, I respect everybody, but I think we need to wait, because I do think that we have a body that represents the citizens out there. And we certainly want to be effective in that. And I do not think that one person or two person would go against the rule of the council. But we do need to have information.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Jordan, did you have a comment?
I just want to make a motion that we end this discussion and move it to the committee of the whole.
If everyone's in agreement, can we further discuss this on January 17th?
I have something else to say.
Proceed.
As far as, I don't think we're trying to, I think we're just discussing the 4-lane. We haven't tried to push anything to make a vote unless we had to for the next one. I'd just like staff to be proactive again with the FDOT of what we've stated in previous council meetings, and make sure that we reiterate our position on that. As far as what I want to talk about is saying that handcuffing this council, saying we don't need to bring things up at the executive and talk about it, I think is totally incorrect in handcuffing this council. So we try to bring everything up at the committee of whole. We've had this discussion before. I don't think it's proper, but if there's something we need to discuss at the executive, it's another extension of the committee of the whole, and I think we need to keep that door open when necessary. Thank you.
I certainly do not intend to close off people taking the opportunity to identify a concern. The logistical organizational suggestion that I think makes the most sense is that when you identify the concern, then let's flesh it out at the committee of the whole so that there's no premature action taken before an item can be fully studied. That is what I'm saying, Councilman Snow. I appreciate your concern. Thank you. Now,
Mayor, I would just add to that, in most of the time that is done, it's pushed to the committee of the whole, just like numerous, I'd say 90%, if not more, of items are always pushed to committee of the whole when it's agreed. But when it's a little bit, if it's a bit of a touchy subject, then it needs to be addressed in the executive or committee or even in the council meeting, it needs to be addressed.
I hope that this council will always address every issue in the public interest for the public good of Milton, and I am going to do my best to facilitate that. I believe the question's been called. I ask for a vote. Was there no second? Who seconded, please? Will anyone second?
I will.
We have a motion.
Discussion?
We have a motion and a second to call the question. Vote on calling the question, please.
This is to forward to.
Forward to the committee of the whole for further discussion. To end discussion on this for now. Okay. The motion passes. Is there any other council report?
Sorry.
Councilwoman Rice, did you have further remarks in your report?
Just another question. You had talked about an appointment for someone to review the charter, and I wanted to know if, and I'm sorry, because we didn't have a committee of the whole.
Right, exactly.
So, and I told you, I'm really excited about this.
I'm glad.
Already. So, are we going to accept applications on that? Or who would be the best person for that to review the charter?
Well, what I really think, what I hope people understand is my intention, is that rather than people deciding to review the charter, the goal is that there be a discussion of a citizens-led committee to determine whether the charter should be reviewed, whether the charter should be changed. Not to actually change the charter necessarily, but to make a study of whether our current charter serves the city well. And if there is a recommendation to make a change, then that citizen-led committee, guided by Councilman Powell, would make a request to this council that there be changes made to the charter. So certainly, if you are suggesting that there be applications taken and staff has time to take those applications, that I have no objection to that. My thought was that each council member would have a suggestion of a person, a citizen in this city, someone who's a resident here, who would have a vested interest in that discussion. I also do believe, too, that it would be wise, prior to any meeting of these residents of the city, that they be educated by the Florida League of Cities historian or someone she designates on what city charters have been evolving to in the state of Florida. This is where I actually got the idea of a citizen-led committee, was from this historian. And I actually had an opportunity to speak to her when I was still city attorney. So I would like for her to have an opportunity to speak, or if she's not available, someone that she can designate to help the citizens, Councilman Powell, this council, and city staff look at this more deeply.
Okay, so then I guess my question is when are we going to move forward with that and the Merchants Association?
So I would think that if people want to make a suggestion for someone to be on the citizen-led committee for their charter, review, that they could make those suggestions tonight, or they could wait till January 17th. Also, as far as the Merchants Association is concerned, Ricky Downs and I will be meeting tomorrow. I met with another business owner earlier today, and I'm hopeful that other business owners have been in contact with each of you since I brought this up in December, so that there could be further discussion on how to build this. One thought that was presented was, you know, we have business licenses for every person who has a business in Milton. So democratically, each one of those individuals who has a business license would have a voice in the Merchants Association, and they could select a board of people who have experience, who have businesses that have some history, and then that board would meet and make sure that people in the city who have businesses are being heard, and they could make a presentation to this council to make sure they have a voice. Because the reason for the Merchants Association, in case I wasn't clear before, is when I was campaigning, many times I heard from business owners, we don't feel we have a voice. Many of them said, I don't live in the city, so I can't vote. How do I have a voice? And so, because we can't change the law to give them a vote simply because they have a business, because you have to be a resident of the city of Milton to vote on elected officials, then this is a way for the business owners and operators within the city of Milton to make sure that you as council are making your decisions after being informed by their concerns. They also can, I hope, generate some momentum on suggesting to this council future decisions on development ideas, on ways to make the city as business friendly as possible, because we have a perception problem. People think we're not business friendly. People think they don't want to come to Milton. I've had a business owner tell me that people say, we don't want to drive to Milton to do this. Well, there was a special circumstance where they had to come to a Milton business to get something in particular done. And I think that's sad. I was born here, I grew up here and in Pensacola, and I remember in high school hearing my classmates in Pensacola make comments about Milton that were not consistent with what I know about our town. We have a great city, we have a great place to call home, and I hope that businesses who have capital to invest will want to invest here. I hope that developers will want to come here to create new housing developments or restore and revive and beautify current developments so that our city can prosper. We have great schools. We have dedicated teachers. We have a wonderful city staff that are dedicated, that work hard. And all of this council love the city of Milton. There's no reason for Milton to have a perception problem. So my hope is that this Merchants Association can gather that momentum to help change that perception issue, to help us with that, because we can't do it alone. So as far as when it's going to get started, I didn't have a hard deadline on that. I'm hoping that we can continue the conversation in committee. I'm hoping that if you've had members of the business community come to you, I'm hoping you'll bring those names forward or ask them to come on January 17th to talk about it.
Okay.
And I'm excited that you're excited about it. Great.
Mayor?
Sir.
I agree. Unfortunately, in the past, we have been known as, or perceived as not business friendly, and I think we've made great strides in the last couple of years. Shows by the growth of the businesses here. And so hopefully we'll continue and find even better ways to do that. My question on the business committee, are these going to be business owners or managers, or what do you want to, and the only stipulation that, it's not a stipulation, but business owners see the books more than the managers do. Not that the managers don't know all the time, but just wanted to see what your vision was there, or where we need to, either find an owner or manager or not. Or what are you thinking?
I'm not wedded to a particular vision there. I would hope that the business owners, operators, whoever's coming to you expressing interest, I know that what the people who have expressed interest to me are saying. I would like for them to have a conversation. This is their association. I think the business people who are involved in this should have a chance to craft that vision, and we shouldn't micromanage them.
Oh, no, I wasn't trying to. I was just saying, so it could be a manager or a business owner part of that.
I'm not saying one way or the other. I'd like to hear from them what they think about that. I do think that if you have a business license, then that shows you have a vested interest in a business succeeding. I do think that the individuals who've expressed interest to me are people who have businesses that have been successful for decades. And so I think that those individuals who know what works in Milton have a lot to share. And I hope that they will take the lead and help us figure out how to make this association a vibrant thing.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was any stipulation on who you wanted to head up for each particular business. That's all.
I don't want to be in the business of making stipulations. I want this Merchants Association to be a great thing that our business community grows and builds.
Could it be people looking to come to Milton, those type of business individuals, or not? Because I get a lot of great feedback on they're excited about things that are happening in Milton. Of course, we have room to grow just like every community, but they're excited. I'm excited. Of course, we got the courthouse, some decisions I was talking with our city manager about today, and of where we're going. I think we need to get on the ball with that to proceed later on with that. Not to discuss it now, but
I hope that if y'all have business owners or interested persons in this Merchants Association who've come to you, I hope you'll encourage them to come talk to us on January 17th or talk to city staff. And I certainly will be continuing to talk with Mr. Jorgensen about it to the extent the city can support this effort. That's what I'm hoping we can do. I believe Mr. Jorgensen had a comment.
I do. It's just that the item is listed on the agenda for the 17th. At that time, we were going to provide you with information on how these things are typically formed in communities and give you some options as it relates to membership and let council have the conversation there.
Thank you, sir.
Do you recommend us invite the business owners?
I think at this time, if you have owners of businesses within the community who've expressed an interest in participating, I would ask that they attend, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And if they can't attend because of a conflict, then hopefully they'll fully inform you as a councilwoman or councilman so that y'all can report to us.
Okay.
I have just a question once again with the Citizen Land Committee for reviewing the charter. Am I correct in you wanting us to maybe make some recommendation on these citizens?
Yes, ma'am. I was hoping that each council member would consider whether there was a resident of the city of Milton who would be able to get engaged in that process of evaluating what do charters do for cities in Florida, learn about home rule and learn about, what works and what has evolved over time in other cities, whether we're at an evolved point or whether we aren't. Right. And based on what I have learned, we are a pretty evolved charter, but there could be room for improvement.
Right. So therefore, these citizens would have to have some kind of vested interest or knowledge about the charter.
I think that would make them the most useful member, but if they're just interested and they want to learn, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be allowed to participate.
Right. Well, that's true too. But I know at least we need some of them in a structured environment that I have some knowledge already about the charter, or maybe those that does not have knowledge, they would have some interest to find out. Because once again, we want to make sure that they are proposing some type of educational opinions or ideas.
Yes, ma'am. That's why I was thinking the historian from the Florida League of Cities would help with that process, because even if you have an inexperienced but enthusiastic resident of Milton who would like to get involved, they could get informed by this information from the Florida League of Cities. And I mean, they're a wonderful resource to us, and I think we need to get their help when we can.
Mayor, if I could?
Yes, sir.
I might ask that each member of council who has the name of an individual that would participate in this process, please provide it to Pam prior to the 17th. We'll give you a listing of the names provided at that time.
That would be great. Does anyone have any concern with that plan? Okay. Councilwoman Rice, did you conclude your remarks? Okay. Did any other council member have a report or question, concern?
Mayor, I just have a question. Would you be against me being an alternate for TPO in case you can't make it?
Sir, I actually had already decided to appoint Councilwoman Johnson as my alternate, because since she is the mayor pro tem, and she would be the logical person to be there. I know you've been to those meetings, so I hope you'll continue to go so that you can continue in the conversation.
Thank you.
And Ms. Mayor,
Yes,
I will
ma'am.
accept, I would accept if you cannot attend, and I will attend.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome.
Are there any other council reports? If not, then I'll move to the mayor's report. Have some exciting things to share. You may have already been updated, but we had an opportunity to jump right in to seeking support for funding for the wastewater treatment facility, which is being named the North Santa Rosa Regional Water Reclamation Facility, because that more accurately represents what it's supposed to be doing. It's not just a wastewater treatment plant for Milton. It has a bigger impact. And so I was able to give a synopsis of our approach to our legislative delegation, and they were very warmly receptive to it, especially, well, really all of them. I know I appreciated that warm reception. And in fact, some of the feedback I got after the meeting was, well, your project's definitely the favorite. I don't know if it is or not, but it was nice to know that some people felt that way, because we need this. The whole region needs this. It's not just about Milton. It's not just about any one of us. It's about the entire region, because we cannot support continued development without this reclamation facility. And it would help the entire county. It would help the region, because our neighboring counties are not able to develop beyond where they are with regard to I-10 in particular. Particularly, too, Whiting Field. I mean, to support the military mission, we have to be in support of this facility. So I've been very excited to get to advocate on this. I was also excited that a member of the governor's transition team contacted me and asked me for more information on the project. Mr. Jorgensen and I worked together on a white paper to submit. I've shared it with you, or asked Ms. Haddon to do it, and she kindly did give y'all a copy of what I shared with Mr. Hoskins, who said it was shared with the transition team. They met on December 27th. So that's exciting. There's a conversation happening about this, and I hope that that conversation continues to get focus and that we get the momentum we need, because we're going to have to continue to advocate for that funding from whatever source, wherever it's available. And I know the legislature is limited in what it can do for us, but to the extent this infrastructure project gets focus, we're going to be very grateful for that. And Mr. City Attorney, not to put you on the spot, but if there's anything you want to add as our representative in Tallahassee, please share that with us. And if now's not the time, then we'll wait till there is a good time.
No, I'm happy to discuss. Jared Williamson's the representative for this area. I'm on the Santa Rosa delegation by virtue of the fact that I represent Gulf Breeze, the south end of this county. But all three members of the Santa Rosa delegation, myself, Senator Broxton, and Representative Jared Williamson, all commented on the fact that this project is incredibly important to this region as an economic driver. This isn't, it might not be, bringing a new company here, which looks nice, but this is a critical component to the growth that Santa Rosa has been enjoying recently. And in order for Santa Rosa to continue to grow, this is a project that is critical to the region. So to see Representative Jared Williamson's depth of knowledge on the project exhibited that evening was very comforting.
Yes.
And to have a representative in that appropriations role that Representative Williamson's in this year,
yes,
is comforting, because he really is the leader on the House side for Santa Rosa County. So I'll be working with Jared closely on it.
We really appreciate it, and also we're glad that the reclamation facility can help the south end as well, which depends on good, clean water. So we know that it will help everybody. Yes, ma'am, Councilwoman Holly. Please, yes. We now have the city manager's report, which relates to board vacancies. Councilwoman Holly is asked to be excused, and we still have a quorum, so we can proceed. Go ahead, sir.
Well, you can see the listing of available positions on advisory boards for the city of Milton. If you have individuals that could participate in any one or more of these committees, I would appreciate getting that information. We've included the application in your packet, and we'll look forward to getting them returned to us. Thank you.
If there's no action on those vacancies tonight, Mr. Jorgensen, is it time to move on to other business?
It is, Mayor.
Mayor, can I make one quick comment? I did talk to staff, Randy and Pam, about those vacancies. There's some guidelines that make people qualified or allow them to be qualified and not. And I asked them to condense it down to a paper for all of us and send it to us all, so we can just, so when you're starting to pick out people, you can, might make it a little easier to
It's a great idea.
to go from there and give us time to recruit some people for these positions. Thank you.
Is that feasible?
Oh, yeah. We consider it done. We'll have it to you.
Thank you, sir. So moving on to other business, Mr. Jorgensen, 11:48. I guess this is just a matter of notifying you or Pam whether we're going to attend the Leadership Awards and Installation Banquet for the Chamber on Saturday, January 26th. Is that right?
That's correct. We typically will purchase a table at a cost, and then following that, we'll purchase tickets for other participants. So if you would like to attend, simply let Pam know. We'll take care of the arrangement.
How much are tickets for,
Tickets, if I recall correctly, are $50 a piece. The table costs us $1,000.
Haddon, what'd you say? Okay. So if the city's purchasing a table for 8, that means 8 members could attend.
That's correct. And if we have additional individuals who would like to attend, those tickets would be purchased on behalf of the city.
And when do you need to hear from council if they would like to go?
But next Tuesday night would be wonderful.
Okay, great. So everyone let Pam know if you want to be at that table.
This is a formal event.
It is.
The next item, 11:49, is Santa Rosa County, City of Milton shared contracts.
These are contracts, Ms. Mayor, that we piggyback on Santa Rosa County's contracts. They negotiate terms and conditions. We ask if we can use their vendors. They agree to allow us to do so. Most cost-effective way we can get this work done.
And has this been reviewed by the city attorney? Any questions or concerns about this process, or?
It has not, but I'm happy to review if you'd like to have a report on it by the council meeting.
To the extent any council member has a question about whether it's appropriate to waive the bid process, I would just like for the city attorney to be ready for those questions on Tuesday. So it looks like this item is you're asking that the council waive the bid process and award the below 3 service providers for the city, and 1 asphalt services award to Panhandle Grading and Paving, 2 fencing award to Jones Fence Company, and 3 road striping award to Gulf Coast Traffic Engineers. And if I understand correctly, that Santa Rosa County has awarded these contracts to these entities, and under the shared process, we could award just as the county has to these entities. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yes. So unless there's any question or discussion on this, I'd like to ask if any member of the council has a motion.
Just a question. Just for everyone, how does this benefit the city by not putting it out for bid, Randy? Just so everyone.
Well, 2 things. One is economy of scale. I mean, these people are already going out and doing work within this general area.
Right.
They don't have to find lay-down yards or, the logistics of putting their personnel in our backyard, so to speak, is already done. And so that keeps the cost down. The more work that is provided to them, the lesser the cost from them generally, and we share in that economy of scale with Santa Rosa County. It works wonderfully from my perspective.
Basically, just like our sidewalk contract.
It is.
And we save a lot of money that way.
It is.
Already. They do a great job.
Cost
Thank
per
you.
linear foot, just a good method of going about getting it done at the cheapest cost.
I'll make a motion to push it through to the council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Powell, second by Councilman Snow to approve this item for the agenda for the city council meeting. If there's not any further discussion, please vote. Unanimously approved. Moving to the next item, 1151, Low to Moderate Income Housing Work Group Subcommittee Report. There is a summary in our materials regarding this work group and a request for funding for the work group to attend a trip to an established tiny home community in Tallahassee, the Dwellings, for early 2019. The purpose is to tour the homes and speak with the board members and community staff about the program and how it has been successful. And is there any discussion about this report that the council would like to have before you act on this request?
I'd like to say something.
Yes, sir.
History is proven grouping low-income, underprivileged persons together breeds contempt and leads to communities substandard, shall we say, and continuing to go down the same road over and over does not make sense. I'm all for low-income housing, but I don't like to see us going down the same road that has been traveled down many times and proven not to work. When you start grouping people together in small communities and small houses, you don't come out with a good result. If you do it this time, you're going to come out with the same results you did last time.
Well, it sounds to be that they're trying to study this further by going to Tallahassee to see if it does work there and to address your very concerns, hopefully.
That has been, Mayor, if I might, that has been part of the conversation at the subcommittee level, has been that projects have created projects. And everybody understands what I'm saying.
It doesn't work.
And that has been part of the discussion at our meeting, that we want to avoid that pitfall because it has not been successful. And in fact, in many communities throughout the nation, they're getting away from that concept. The city of Milton has taken that position in the past. We have asked that all of the Section 8 certificates in this city be disseminated throughout the community so that people of low to moderate income can find themselves unrecognizable per se in our city, so that they blend in with those around them, and there's not that moniker that many people feel is negative. And
the
that
Milton Housing Authority is working toward that right now. They're working in our community,
that
doing
is
exactly what you're saying.
That has been the result of requests that in part were made by the city.
And that worked.
And it does, and we agree. And so what we're also doing is looking at concepts that in recent history have been successful. These are not projects per se, but these are tiny homes that can be used to house individuals either through lease agreements or through purchase. There's pride in ownership, and one of the things we want to look at is the ability of people of those income indices to obtain property ownership. And this may be an available avenue. It's worked well not only in Tallahassee but other places. And what we're doing right now is trying to reach out and look at how that's worked in Tallahassee. And if there's something good there that we can transfer to this community, then I think it's something we should consider. It's been on the forefront of how these issues have been addressed in other parts of Florida, not just Tallahassee, but in our neighboring states as well. Councilman Paul has headed up the committee's work. It has been a number of meetings to this point. I think there's been a lot of discussion that's been extremely positive, and we just look forward to having an opportunity to see what has worked.
Would you be going to the?
Yes.
Okay, so if Councilman Powell goes, who else is going to go on this trip?
Well, we've invited all of the members of the subcommittee. And certainly any member of council that would like to travel with us would be invited.
I think it makes sense to make the visit, to learn about it, and Councilman Powell can report back for those of us who can't go.
Absolutely, and one of the things that we've talked about, and by the way, to address the other councilman's comments, part of this committee is Milton Housing Authority. They actually are part of this subcommittee. They are on the committee with me. We've had a lot of discussions on, and we also have builders that are part of this committee, and we've had a lot of discussion on what we can do. And just to speak briefly, and I won't derail the conversation because we could talk all night on the subject, but to speak briefly to what you're saying, no, we are not disseminating Section 8 throughout our community because no one's accepting it. So we have a problem. The problem is that the largest provider of apartments in our city has completely stopped accepting Section 8. So we're not disseminating them throughout the community evenly because it's impossible at this moment to do that, which is one of the challenges and why Milton Housing Authority is part of this process. So this is just an idea. It's not saying we're going this direction. But the point is, if we're going to talk about it, then we need to actually go look at it and see, does it work or does it not? If it doesn't, then we need to move on to a different idea. And this is a step that we think will get us to that. If it doesn't work, then we need to shelve it and find somewhere else direction to go. But we need to actually go see a community that is thriving in and that is growing consistently and it is working in. There are some other ones in Florida, but this one is cost effective as far as going to visit. Instead of going to Orlando, I don't think that's cost effective to take 15 members to Orlando.
When is the trip?
Right now, we don't have it scheduled yet. That's one of the reasons this report's here, so that you guys know that this is what we're wanting to do. It's going to be scheduled for a Saturday if everyone involved is responded. I haven't seen the responses yet, but they don't come to me. They go to the planning department and they let me know what everyone's preference is for the date. This month, we have some other things going on Saturdays, some orientations and stuff like that. So we had to try to look at it that way, as well as the prayer breakfast coming up too, that we wanted to make sure that I was available for. So it was a little more limited than what we would like, but we definitely want to be able to address if this is a solution that may be available to our community. If not, we want to be able to move on to something that will be available.
Mayor, if it's, I'd like to make a motion that we move this to the committee of the whole. I'd like to discuss this a little further.
This is just a report.
Yeah.
This is a subcommittee.
Okay, so I think
we're
you're asking to
wanting to
discuss
vote.
whether to fund the trip?
That's right. I would like to move that to committee of the whole to.
I don't think we can.
Actually, the funding of this trip is in the purview of the city manager. It's not something that needs approval
Yeah.
because of the cost, but we wanted to make a report. We were actually already informed the committee that we were going.
It is an expenditure that I can approve. And the committee, which is working on behalf of the council, has requested they be able to do so. I support the request.
Could the members of the committee, in addition to Councilman Powell, come on Tuesday evening to provide further information to Councilman Jordan to answer some of his questions?
I'm sure that could happen. I would rather that Councilman Jordan attend the next committee meeting.
When is the next committee meeting for this work group? Is it set yet? Is that what you mean?
It would be a week from Thursday, so that being the 10th.
January 10th, this group will meet again. Can you go to that meeting, Councilman Jordan?
I will have to check my calendar to be sure, but I think I can, if at all possible.
Great.
I do have one more question though.
Yes, sir.
How long has the community that you're going to visit been
They have been a community for the past 3 years, I believe, at this point, and currently in 2018, I believe they added 45 more units to their community. They've continued to grow as the time has went by, and the community is not specific to only Section 8. It is not specific to only low income. That is just a portion of their community.
I understand.
So it is a broader base than what, and one of the things that we talk about in this summary is the community partnership was formed. It's a 501c3 that actually formed to create this community in Tallahassee. So there's some other aspects that we want to understand on how they made that work and how they were able to form a partnership within the private sector to make this happen. It's not a county or city ran project. It is actually a community partnership project. And then not project in what you're thinking of. I can see your face. Project is in the entire project.
I don't want to prolong this
Yeah.
discussion, really. I don't want, but 3 years does not prove a community.
Well, there are other communities that are further away from us that have been going for longer, but again, those aren't the ones that are easily
City
attainable.
of Montgomery?
Rather than,
Is the City of Montgomery one of those?
I believe so, and then Orlando as well. And
rather than continue this conversation, I'll make a point to go to the
Yeah,
meeting.
please do go, and I'm interested too in other communities as well, so I hope I can also hear about it. Councilwoman Hathaway, did you have a comment on it?
No.
Okay.
Mayor,
I saw your face and thought.
No.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick one. I agree with Councilman Jordan, and I agree with Councilman Powell. Definitely, sometimes you pick something and create something else, as staff has said. But I'm all for this committee going to do a fact finding. But I do agree, 3 years is limited time as far as things like that, and we can definitely work that out later. But I see nothing against this committee doing a fact finding. That's the least we could do in this situation, because I'm for public housing as needed. I think we are, as Councilman Powell, with the apartment situation of what that company did here, and plus with the removal of the units up on Sanders Street, I believe. And I've been working for about 1.5 years with another group, and that have done other options in other communities, and they have worked well. So, and I think we need to look at more than one way, as Councilman Powell says, to achieve what we want to achieve, because we all care for our citizens, and so let's keep beating these bushes and try to find a solution as soon as possible, sooner than later.
And absolutely, as was stated when we first formed this back in October, everyone on this panel is more than welcome to attend. I know I haven't had a lot of you come, but if you'd like to come be part of the conversation, please do.
Can staff send a reminder out just in case?
We'd be happy to. It's been a real interesting dialogue, good committee meetings, a lot of interaction, people from a cross-section of the community. Good committee.
What's the time of your meeting, Casey?
6:30.
6:30.
On the 17th.
On the 10th.
30 on the 10th.
10th. It's a later meeting, but it's because we have so many different people that are involved. It kind of works with everyone's schedule. And sometimes it ends up being after meetings that we have scheduled here, so we had to make sure it was 6:30.
Right.
I think we have something scheduled every day this month.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Y'all know I agree with all of you that you should thoroughly investigate things before you make decisions and be open to new information. And so I'm glad that y'all are going to do this. And I appreciate Councilman Jordan's concerns. So certainly have to investigate and make sure we know what we don't know and continue to learn before we make a decision. So this housing subcommittee report is essentially seeking, I guess, allowing everyone to get updated on this. And I don't know that there's any action to be taken at this point based on what I've been hearing. Is that right, Mr. Jorgensen?
That's correct, Mayor. I just wanted the council to be kept abreast of the activities of the subcommittee.
Should we go ahead and approve the 500?
Well, that would be wonderful if you would.
Motion.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Snow, a second by Councilwoman Hathaway. There's no further discussion. Please vote. Unanimously approved. And the last item is the local vendor policy.
Mayor, we were asked to provide a copy of the policy to council. Council was curious as to whether or not there was a policy in place, so we provided it as an informational item.
Thank you. There aren't any questions or any items to discuss on this policy. It's for information only and no action necessary. Is that right?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay. Well, there's nothing further on the agenda, so
I do have one note, Mayor, if I could.
Yes, sir.
Chuck Branch of Next Site is scheduled to meet with me on the 14th at 3 p.m. If any member of council would like to participate in that conversation, he is our retail recruiter, if you recall.
What time?
3 o'clock
on what day?
on the 14th. And if you'd like to be present, I'd invite any member, along with any interested public in the hinterland that would also like to attend. We can have a conversation in these council chambers, and I'll make sure that the gathering is noticed.
Thank you for that announcement. There being no other business on the agenda, we're adjourned.
Yes. I don't do it, obviously, but it's noticed.
Well, that's what, I just,
It wasn't a.
January 10th at 6:30.
It's not a public.
Hey, how are you doing? Yeah, where do you want to go? You want to go in front of the seal?